This is the Page Publishing Book Club. How you doing? Good evening. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. Rob Barrett is my engineer. And boy, do we have a jam-packed show tonight, Rob. I gotta tell ya. Motivations for tonight's authors include determination, grief, love of literature, and sex. Yes, we're saving the erotic fiction for last. We begin with Lakeisha Mackey. She grew up in Georgia and had all kinds of struggles, but was determined to overcome them, and she tells us how in her book entitled The Truth You Didn't Know. Tell us about your struggles, Lakeisha.
I had struggle in school with learning, and I was bullied real bad. My mom and us, we was on welfare, so a lot of money we didn't have, so I got picked on in school. I got left back a couple of times, just a lot.
How did you overcome these struggles?
I just had to keep myself motivated, had to keep telling myself that it's got to be something, better than living in the projects on welfare, no money. It's got to be something better than that, and that's what I want to strive for. And I always wanted to write a book.
What did you end up doing?
I ended up not writing a book till now and just working fast food jobs and other little jobs. And then I come across Page Publishing, and that's when my dream, I could start seeing it.
So this is the beginning for you of realizing your dream. Do you still live in the projects?
Oh, no. I moved out here in 2005.
So you accomplished that. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I left all my family in Augusta. They still stuck in that same mind frame, and I didn't want to be stuck in that same mind frame no more, so I was like, I got to go. So I moved out here September 3rd of '05 with just $50 in my pocket.
And what did you do?
I had a cousin that stayed here, and I stayed with her for a year till I got my own place, got a job working at a restaurant.
And that's how you've been able to support yourself?
Yep. I worked 2 jobs when I moved out here.
Good for you. What is it that you were running from?
I just had to change my way of thinking. They think so negative about everything. And I'm like, you can't think negative about everything. You have to think positive. So I just had to leave. I was running from my past, running from the negativity. I didn't want to be around it no more. I just wanted somewhere fresh and new. I had just broke up with this guy, and I was like, I want to be in a new place, at a new job, new surroundings, meet new people. So I just went for it.
It sounds like you're also a really hard worker.
I am. When I got my own place, I walked to both of those jobs. One job was Burger King, so I would work there from like 7 to 3. And I would walk home, get dressed, and go to my other job, which was right across the street from that job at 5.
5 till when?
5 to like 1 in the morning, because it was like a sports bar.
And you would do that every day?
Mm-hmm.
For how long?
Almost a year. And then I got sick in '07, and I just couldn't work the 2 jobs no more. The doctor said it was just too much for me.
So what do you do now?
Right now, I work at a smoothie shop. It's a cool little job.
And the message of your book is, if you can do it, so can anybody else.
Yes, that's
right.
That's my whole message.
Did you send copies home to your family?
Well, my mom, she's not too thrilled about the book because she had some issues. Me writing about the issues that we had, she's not too thrilled about it. And some of the family is not either. I have more support from people outside of my family than my family.
How are you going to sell these books?
I got an ad on Facebook that I'm running right now, and I'm on Twitter, and I'm on Instagram, and, of course, Facebook.
Right. Well, I wish you all the luck in the world. You're going to keep writing now?
Oh, yes.
All right.
Yes. I got a second book that's being published right now.
Okay.
My son is autistic. I'm writing about all the things that I'm doing to help him, like with vitamins and juices, natural things to get his brain to where it needs to be. So that title of that book is On the Road to Saying Bye to Autism.
Great. Good for you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the second one. So I don't plan on stop writing no time soon. When I'm not at work, I'm writing.
Excellent, Lakeisha. You keep it up. Cherie Aldridge is a big fan of the Scarlet Letter, and she takes the ultimate challenge in writing a prequel to the Nathaniel Hawthorne classic for her first published book. I was amazed by this. It's entitled Hester. Now, Cherie, how often do first-time authors attempt something as monumental as this?
Actually, more frequently than you would imagine. There's a whole genre of literary spin-offs. So people have spun off of like Jane Eyre, King Lear, Hamlet. Literary spin-off is pretty big. I was an English teacher, high school, for 33 years, and almost all of those years I taught the Scarlet Letter, and my students were always asking questions that Hawthorne didn't exactly provide the answer to. So I would say something to them like, oh, somebody should write a book about that. And they kept saying, well, why don't you write it? And so over the years, I just started thinking about doing that, and finally, one day, decided to start.
So you basically fill in the blanks.
Yes, because there are a lot of questions I guess some readers have when they read the Scarlet Letter about what Hester Prynne, the beautiful heroine of that book, found intriguing about Arthur Dimmesdale, the somewhat weak-seeming character who has fathered her child. So I wrote something to maybe answer some of those questions.
So why was she attracted to somebody like this?
Right.
Yeah.
And to try to show that maybe there was another side of him, and to just fill in some of the blanks. And I tried to be very true to Hawthorne, though, because I really love Hawthorne's writing, and I tried to be very true to what I felt was his intent in portraying Hester Prynne. And I tried to, using modern language, but with a hint towards older language, to even suggest the type of language that he used when he wrote the book, the older language, but giving it a modern update.
What do you think his intent was?
I think one of his intents, which has always intrigued me, is to show a very strong woman who has to face a very difficult, critical society. And I think he was pointing out a lot of the hypocrisy of the Puritan society, but also showing how a woman can be very strong and powerful. I think it's an early feminist portrayal. And that was one of the things that always intrigued me about the book. I mean, I think Hester Prynne is the first female protagonist in American literature. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you, Nathaniel. Thank you for getting us.
Yes. So anyone who's very familiar with the Scarlet Letter will pick up on a lot of references to characters and to events and to symbols even that were included in the Scarlet Letter.
You must have totally enjoyed this.
I did. It was an effort of joy for sure.
And next?
Well, I developed a Facebook page, and I included a lot of my former students on the Facebook page, and then I have a lot of former colleagues. I'm actually retired now from teaching English, but I included a lot of people that I knew might be interested, and then several other friends of mine did outreaches to people, and my husband did some outreaches to people he knows. So I did a book signing a couple of weeks ago at Barnes & Noble here in Tampa, and that was very, very successful. We had a great turnout.
Would this be a good book for students to read?
Oh, yes. As a matter of fact, quite a few people who have read it have told me it has made them want to go back and reread the Scarlet Letter if they hadn't read it in a long time. Or in a couple of cases, people have said they never read the Scarlet Letter and they read my book and it made them want to read the Scarlet Letter. So to me, that's a great outcome for my book, because I certainly want to encourage people always to keep reading classic literature. So if my book in any way influenced anyone to go back and either revisit Hawthorne or read him for the first time, I think that's wonderful.
Me too. I think, you know what, Cherie, I think I'm going to go back and reread. Thank you. Moretta Dotson suffered a parent's worst nightmare. Violence took the life of her son, but somehow she managed to write about it in her book entitled Footsteps of a Grieving Mother. Moretta, what happened?
He was killed. He was at a party. I think a fight or something broke out, and he was shot accidentally.
How long ago?
It's been 10 years now.
Why did you decide to write this now?
Well, at first I didn't want to write, but then after I started writing, it became easier for me to try to cope with it. And so after I started writing, I decided that if I could tell my story, maybe it would help someone else, because a lot of things was going on at that time. And I was like, if I write this, not only would it help or heal me, maybe it'll help someone else.
What was going on at that time?
It's living in this town called Shreveport, Louisiana, and there's a lot of violence. And they said my son's death was like the 21st death, and that was only like May of the year. He was killed May 13th, which happened to be Mother's Day.
Why is there so much violence there?
I have no idea. I don't know why everyone is so angry. I don't know.
Jobs, there aren't enough jobs, gangs, I mean.
There's a multiple of all of it. Low wages of work, is non-work, is games. It's just a variety of things that's going on.
How old was your son?
My son was 16 years old.
Oh, what was he doing?
He was in school. He was getting ready to enter his junior year. And he was athlete, was supposed to have been a starting quarterback for that year to come.
So you don't know what happened or why he was where he was at, or was he hanging out with bad people? I mean, that would drive me crazy not knowing why.
He was with some friends, and they were at the fast food chain to get food or whatever. And like I said, there was a lot of hanging out, kids getting out, from my understanding, dancing and, communicating with one another, and some anger or something flared up, and there were fights. And then from there, from my understanding, there was gunfire, and my son was caught in the midst of it.
Did anything good come out of it? Did the community come together? Was there any positive thing that came out of this?
For a moment. And each time something like this happens, it's just like for the moment. They come together and they do prayer vigils, and they talk about doing things. They're in one right now because there's so much death going on still. And they talk about the increase of the police hiring and get our streets back and all that. But these people's mindset is not on doing better. I really don't think it's on doing better.
You really don't think that it's sincere?
I don't. When I say that, I speak of the people that are doing the crime. They have great intentions of trying to help, but to me, if that person's mind is set on doing that, they're going to do it regardless.
Yeah, it takes a sea change. A whole community has to change. And there's got to be things for these kids to do. And, there used to be organizations that would respond to that. Like there'd be a YMCA in the community, and there'd be places for kids to go and give them hope for their future. And there's so many communities today where, situations like this become politicized and, like you said, for the moment. What would you like to see happen now that you've written this book and it has helped you kind of work through the grief, even though it's been 10 years? I don't think a mother ever gets over losing her son. What would you like to see happen now?
What I would like to see happen is for everyone to come together and understand that pain is real. And when you go out and do these things to hurt someone's family or their loved one, it's a hard thing to swallow. So I would like for them to just come together and just understand that it needs to stop. All the violence, it just needs to stop. And we just need to love one another and be there to help one another. Help one another through whatever situation that they're going through, no matter how big or how small it is. And address some of the anger, get some programs or whatever to sit these kids down and, to just slap them in jail or whatever. I don't think that's going to solve the situation. Sit them down and go deep inside them and see what is the problem. How can you help them?
I hear you, Moretta. That is the question, and maybe, just maybe, this is the beginning of figuring out how to address the problem. We have got to take a quick break, but we're coming right back. This is the Page Publishing Book Club.
Attention all authors. Page Publishing is looking for authors. Have you written a book and want to get it published? Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, Apple iTunes, and other outlets. They handle all aspects of the publishing process for you. Printing, cover art, publicity, copyright, and editing. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. That's 800-204-6099 for your free author submission kit.
Welcome back to the Page Publishing Book Club. Rebecca Robbins taught early childhood education for 20 years in LA and then became a bartender in Vegas where she cut her hand very badly, but that's what gave her time to write. She ended up focusing on the laws of attraction in a children's book entitled Mystic Mermaid. Rebecca.
I was writing in the gratitude journal one evening, and it wasn't necessarily a voice in my head. It was more of a feeling I had, and the feeling was like a voice telling me, you should write a children's book based on the laws of attraction, because I had been studying that for 5 years. And it just kind of hit me, and I was like, you know what, that's a great idea. And I started to write, and, I would write as a child in a journal all the time or write small stories. And I went to the Goodwill, and I found this leather-bound notebook with very old, yellowed, college paper, rolled paper. And it had that smell of a library and knit, old book smell in the paper. And I wrote a small note saying, thank you, whoever's notebook this was, and guide me in writing these stories. And I would literally start writing. I would always write with a blue pen on the paper. I never typed it first. And I just kept going and going. And sometimes it'd be 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'd snap out of it. And the time had just gone by. It was almost like I was channeling a writer. I would just write, and before I knew it, I had 19 stories, so 6 are now in this first book.
And it's all about laws of attraction. How old are the kids you're writing this for?
More 3, 4, 5. You can go up to probably about age 10 that would enjoy reading the book. Also, at the end of each story, there's a reader's project, which pertains to the actual, the lesson, if you will, on each story is. For instance, the first story is about being gratuitous and saying thank you, doing a lot of things that you are thankful for, and recognizing what you are thankful for on a daily basis. To do a gratitude journal, and then recognizing if somebody's thankful for something that you had done for them.
What are the others on?
Mm-hmm. Just respecting people for who they are, not being judgmental.
Okay.
Doing daily affirmations and saying something along the lines of, I am bold, strong, courageous, perfect, powerful, positive, happy, harmonious. How to make your dreams come true and being successful.
Why mermaids?
You know what? Because I love the ocean, and I've always had a thing for mermaids. I just think they're really unique.
Okay.
And on a sidebar, the illustration of the actual mermaid herself, Mystic herself, that's my daughter Jordan's face. I had the illustrators use my daughter Jordan, she just turned 13. I'm actually donating a book each to the 2 temples that I worked at. I'm going to meet with the librarian of the children's department of the libraries here in Las Vegas. And I would love to go to the schools and read them to the children myself. So I'm working on that, but it's summertime right now. So I know Page Publishing does a lot, like this interview, for instance. However, I'm doing a lot of self-promoting. I'm sending a book and a personalized letter to certain TV hosts that would enjoy that. Jimmy Fallon wrote a children's book, so I kind of challenged him and said, well, my children's book is better than your 2. Just to get his attention. And Ellen DeGeneres, for instance, a lot of children are on her show, and Rachel Ray and Dr. Phil, just because he works with a lot of families. So that's another avenue I'm taking as well.
All right, Rebecca, sounds like a plan. Simoline Kimber loves making up stories for her children, grandchildren, even the kids who still call her mom at the school district where she worked as a cook. Finally, she found time to write them down, and her first one's been published. It's entitled Starlight Little Fairy and Her Friend. So what did you do, make up these stories as you went along?
Yeah, actually, I always read stories to them before they went to bed to go to sleep, And sometimes they would not exactly want to go to sleep. They just really got interested in the story instead of getting tired and going to sleep. So I thought, well, I'll just start making up a little bit different in the stories, make my own story up, and see if that'll work about putting them to sleep. And it did, but they could tell that I was making things up. So I thought, well, I think I'll just start writing it down and make my own storybook up and see what happens, because they liked what I was making up. Yeah, they knew I was changing the story, too, and they were really small. They go, Mom, the book doesn't go like that.
Did you start writing these stories down when your kids were little?
Yeah, when all my children were small. Yeah, I've been working on this off and on, doing the artwork and the story and the illustrations, and plus raising my kids and working outside the house.
So you started writing these stories down years ago, and now you decided it's time to publish them.
Yes.
So what's Starlight Fairy about?
She is a little fairy that is very close to her family, very loving, a heart of gold, and very protective of her family. And one day she went out to the woods and was playing around with her friends and just having a nice day. And she heard a loud scream come from her house, and she went rushing home. And her mom and dad were very upset because the witch come in and stole the magic wand that's been in the family. It's an heirloom. It's been in the family for years. And she'd come in, they were frantic, and she kind of took the wand from our hands, and Starlight said, not to worry, I'll get it back. And they were worried, of course. Starlight said, not to worry, I'll grab up all my friends and we'll get the wand back. So she knew it was going to be a big mission, very dangerous. So she wasn't afraid, though, because she knew that good could always overcome bad. Away they went. And, well, what happened was they distracted her, and she grabbed the wand from the witch's hands. So then she whipped the wand. They said, turn her into some balloons. And so they turned her into some balloons, and then all the birds and her friends popped her, and that was the end of the Big Bad Witch.
Nice. So every story has a lesson.
Yes.
Well, you work in a school system, so are you able to somehow get these books to kids that might enjoy reading them?
Well, I'm retired right now, but I did make some promises. They knew what I was doing, and when I told them my mission was accomplished, that I would definitely come and do an assembly. They want to hold an assembly for me at North Bend High School to inspire the kids into following your dream and never give up.
I hear you, Simoline, and I couldn't agree more. Finally, warning, adult content. E. Franklin Hawkins wrote the Middle Liquor Chronicles, and it's one hot subject. We're talking erotic fiction, and I'm going to let E. Franklin take it from here. It's an interesting title, I'll give you that.
I have to credit the illustrious R. Kelly for that title. I derived it from a song he created called Cookie, in which he says, I love to lick the middle like an Oreo. So with that said, I decided that I would take middle and liquor and create a word.
What's your book about?
Actually, it's a series of vignettes derived from my life as a template. And what it actually is about is trying to change the way that men think, treat, and act towards women.
What's wrong with the way men act toward women?
Nowadays, in videos and in music and even in regular conversation, men have a way of calling women out of their name, so to speak. Different types of names instead of saying...
Oh, you mean like biatch and, you know.
Yes. I could never think of a woman in those terms. I beg to differ with most men who would think of women in those terms. So I wrote this book in an effort to make men think about women more as the way they should be thought of and cherished and loved.
Now, this is about the erotic episodes of a guy named Easy Hansen.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, do you have any connection to this story or to these stories?
These stories were actual vignettes that I lived. These episodes were things that actually happened in my life. And I fictionalized for this account.
Okay, so were you really a public speaker?
Yes. As a matter of fact, in 2014, I made a speech to the state legislature of Delaware on behalf of the Food Bank of Delaware.
Okay.
And I had a photo op with the governor.
Who do you represent?
Right now, I just represent the average black man in America.
Okay. Give me a little teaser. What can we look forward to?
Well, in the first story, we find our protagonist, Easy Hansen, having a phone conversation with a young lady by the name of Corinne Tate, who has been looking through websites for a suitable person that she can have a relationship with. And when she comes across Easy's page, she's sort of intrigued by his delivery and decides to contact him in order to find out whether or not what it is that he says on his page is actually true. And from there we go on to the method of seduction in which Easy uses to relax her and Tate and bring her to that which I believe every woman is entitled to, and that's an orgasmic release.
Does he do something no other man does?
Well, not so much that no other man does. It's just that something that men usually aren't, say, I guess, inclined to do. Easy would like that the woman would be very comfortable and relaxed. So as she's seated in his furniture in his living room, in his chaise lounge, he reaches down and removes her shoes and cradles her feet in his hands. And as he's rubbing and massaging her feet, they have a conversation. And as that conversation progresses and the woman becomes more and more relaxed, he is able to actually seduce her.
So each of these vignettes is a tale of how this guy seduces women and how he pleasures women.
Yes.
And what is it that you hope to accomplish with this? I mean, you want to open the eyes of men who don't know how to treat women on every level.
Yeah. But I would like men also to recognize that women are entitled to sexual orgasmic release just as much as they are.
Fair enough. I could not agree with you more.
Well, thank you very much. And I tell people, when they read my book, it would be a good thing if they had a member of the opposite sex or a person that they love in close proximity.
Okay. Thanks for the warning.
You're very welcome. May you live as long as you want to, and may you want to as long as you live.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that. Did you hear that, Rob? May you live as long as you want to, and may you want to as long as you live. I couldn't think of a better way to end the show, could you? Whew! Alrighty, I just want to thank all of our authors for joining us tonight, and I want to thank you especially for tuning in or downloading us at 710WOR.iHeart.com. We are already hard at work on the next edition of the Page Publishing Book Club, and we can't wait to bring it to you. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Rob Barrett's my engineer. We'll see you next time.